Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. Natalie Menten has spent years being an advocate for Colorado taxpayers. And now in 2023, Natalie is sounding the alarm on a horrible ballot initiative. Well, Natalie, thank you for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
You know, Natalie, dishonest politicians, they get away with their political shenanigans only when voters are kept unaware. So I'm very glad that you're explaining how Colorado taxpayers are being set up to get screwed over by Tabor haters using these political shenanigans.
I am glad to be here and share some more of this information. There was polls recently that indicated that when people just read the ballot question, two-thirds of voters will approve Proposition HH. And my motto on this is the more you know, the more you'll vote no. So that is what we're going to try to accomplish there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the other sides of Proposition HH, which may not be so obvious, again, to the voter, and they should be well aware of it. And it's about the so-called tax caps and this truth in taxation clause that they've got written into Proposition HH. And as noted there, is basically comes down to is how hard will the taxpayers get screwed over this deal? So going into getting the facts about what's actually occurring, when you read the Blue Book, which is that booklet that gets sent to all the voters in Colorado, it arrives a couple weeks before the ballot. Towards the beginning of the Blue Book, it's got the summary area. And as you can see here right now in this draft proposal, the fifth bullet they're talking about creates a new limit on the growth of property tax revenue for most local governments. Now, I've sent in comments twice on these drafts and have asked, begged even, that they insert the word new option, keyword optional limit on the growth of property tax revenue. And it's for really some governments, but the optional is most important to have that in there. And I'm going to explain just a little bit more about that. They have so far decided not to add that in, but that could change before the August 31st hearing for the Blue Book, which I would encourage activists, if they're able to attend that meeting. It's the 31st, 9 a.m. down at the state capitol on the second floor in the old state library. So right now, the Blue Book is trying to say that there is this limit, new limit on the growth of property tax revenue. As we all know, property tax revenue is collected at the local level. So that's why this is really important. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what this means with an optional property tax cap. They're calling this the truth in taxation, and why they would have picked the name for that, I'm not actually sure. But what it is saying here in Proposition HH, that the local government has to hold a process annually where the board of directors of that district will decide whether they're going to keep the property tax over the limit or not. That is completely optional for them. All they have to do is hold a meeting with 10 days notice, have a public hearing, and they're able to decide on their own whether they're going to abide by that cap or to waive it. That means that power is removed from the citizen when they are giving authority in HH not only to give up Tabor refunds, they're also giving away their authority for that local government to have those tax caps in place. So going back to the Blue Book, when it doesn't use the word optional in there, it makes it appear like this is a solid thing that the voter can base their decision upon. That's completely inappropriate. Optional has to be in there. For any of us who keep track of local government meetings, keeping track of the special districts is trying to herd cats. I mean, there's meetings throughout these little days. There's no notice on the website. Trying to keep up with them is about impossible. As it shows on this slide here, and I grabbed this slide from Special Districts Association. So the hyperlink is at the bottom of the page here. People can go and look at it for themselves. But basically what it's saying is this decision as to whether to cap local property taxes is really completely in the hands of the elected body of that local jurisdiction. And special districts include a lot of different local governments in Colorado. It's hard to keep an eye on all of them. And now this decision is being put in the hands of those elected representatives. Here in Colorado, bear in mind, we do still have some tax caps in place for certain jurisdictions. It's a good reminder, I've highlighted it here in the slide, that you may have less worries here if you still have your taxpayers' Bill of Rights protections, and if you also have the annual mill levy law protection. Keep in mind, we've done the videos on those. I'm not going to go into them here, but it's important to remember that and to fight to keep those. We're in this situation because people gave up their Tabor rights. We are in this situation because people gave up the right to the annual mill levy law, which covered special districts. People gave away those rights years ago, and now Proposition HH asks to give up even more. So I got off track there a little bit, but let's talk about which governments does this cap cover. I've described that is limited, but there's an exemption for two of those where they don't even have to pay attention to this process at all with the property tax caps, meaning they can just keep the revenue. The decision is completely in their hands. There is no state mandate part of Prop HH that caps it. These ones were the squeakiest wheels, the lobbyists with the most ability to whisper into that legislator's ear and get what they desired. That's what it boils down to. And folks, those lobbyists, by the way, are paid with your tax dollars. So here they are helping the government pick winners and losers, keeping more of your property tax money, however you want to look at it, but it's lobbyists, our taxpayer money funding these lobbyists doing this. The school districts have been exempted from the property tax caps in Prop HH. So when I said some or local, where I argued with Blue Book, some or most, I mean, the school district is one of the biggest line items on a property tax bill. And the school district exempted from this, with the amount of additional revenue that we have coming in 2024, is completely inexcusable that there are not some caps there. The other big jurisdiction that's not included in these property tax caps are home rule jurisdictions. So my city of Lakewood and a good chunk of more urban type of cities, and some counties are, well, there's very few on counties, but most of the cities are home rule. They won't fall under these property tax caps. So this leads into a further discussion about this. What the Special Districts Association, this is another presentation from their site, is describing here is the soft cap. So let's just go back to what this is with the Truth in Taxation soft cap, meaning property tax cap. It adds in an annual process, whether to collect and retain those property tax revenues, assuming you don't have Tabor or the 5.5 protection, and whether that government can keep the new money above the new property tax limit. It excludes certain revenues, but basically at the end of the day, it's taking a majority of the property tax increase that is expected, which in some counties may be as low as in the 30%, while some counties are in the reported 70 to 80% increase. This allows those governments to keep those additional property tax revenues if they comply with these very, very strict, very, very hard requirements to keep people's hard-earned money. And what that means is they must publish notice with at least 10 days advance notice, which is great. So if you go on vacation, you might miss this completely, all right? Then they're going to take public comment. That's wonderful. You might be limited. Maybe you'll get 2 minutes. Maybe you'll get a whole gram, 3 minutes to tell your city council what you think about this. And then they'll adopt a resolution at the same meeting as to whether they can keep your property taxes or not, to the full extent of what we're seeing with the increases that are projected. So going back to what the Blue Book says, create a new limit on the growth of property tax revenue for most local governments. Well, considering there's an opt-out, there's government bodies, two of the most major ones on a property tax bill, being the school district, home rule municipalities, are exempted from this. Is that really the best and most accurate statement that we can make in the Blue Book, which is going to be sent to every voter household in Colorado when we could have the option of simply something as create an optional limit. I mean, when they can, waive it that easily, isn't that the right, better statement to put in there? And then I want to end with this last slide, and then we can go back and forth. But just a reminder that these local taxes, property taxes, they're collected at that local level, the city. Well, city races for elected office are this year. That means school district races are this year. Those are those big chunks that we just discussed. You're going to be asked for a vote for those candidates in less than 80 days. Ballots will go up before that. So we're voting, election day is less than 80 days, right up. And it's up to us to educate those candidates and the electeds who are running for re-election that they can cap or lower the mill levy. Because these are regular people actually that run for office. They get elected, they're hit with a fire hydrant, fire hose worth of information. They don't really always sometimes maybe process all the options and the power that they have. Remind them, they actually vote for and set that mill levy. They can cap it, they can lower it. Make it important to pin candidates down, pin them down hard, ask them, you're handing them a vote. They should be able to answer a question. How are you going to deal with the property tax increase that we're seeing? And as one reminder, there's still actually some time right now if somebody wants to run for city council or school board and make it a platform plank that I'm going in there to, yes, provide reasonable level of government, but I'm not going to jab and sucker punch the taxpayers with a double digit, meaning 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% increase in their property taxes. And frankly, there's one other option. I've discussed it once before briefly, but go into it just again because it can be done. And if you have elected officials who won't cap your property taxes, you can recall them here in Colorado. And recall them, there should be, when you fill out the forms to do that and go out to get signatures, there's a reason stated, and it's really for financial harm. There is no other way to put it right now with what we have coming up. Proposition HH is a junk proposal, needs to be voted down. We have to take care of this problem at the local level. And that is why this is where local government happens. And you, the viewer, have the power, baby. So let's go back and forth now.
Great, great. Well, kind of, talking about this last point, I think that's key is that, you talked a little bit about how property taxes are locally collected, right? The money is really for the local level. There's no state property taxes we've discussed previously. And so really that's where the solution has to lie, ultimately, right? I mean, we can't expect the state to solve this issue when the real issue is more at the local level, right?
Yes, it is. And we've done another episode actually on how this is taking local dollars, local control. Proposition HH is taking these local dollars, local control, and putting it through the state in what's basically hijack. It's a hijack hoax, jinx. Anyway, I'm trying to tie into the HH. It's a hijack of the money. I mean, it's funneling money up. And so, yeah, we need to take it back to this local level. Because that's where it happens by nature. Colorado Municipal League, I believe it was them, had a press release. Sorry, guys, if I misquoted you. If not, it's Dr. Cog maybe. But we're contradicting Polis in a public statement where he said these local governments failed by not doing anything, and
Right.
their official response to Polis in their published press release was, no, Polis, we didn't fail. The time to do this actually is coming up. And that's when the mill levy is set. I mean, so we've got agreement that this idea we're talking about with the local reduction, this is not something that's just far-fetched. This is actually in the set of instructions as to how you treat taxpayers. And it's not winging it up with stuff like this Prop HH where they're taking Tabor refunds in exchange for this pitiful and almost worthless thing called Proposition HH that we're going to vote on in less than 80 days.
Well, and that's what I want to go back to. So you were talking a little bit earlier in the presentation about how, this so-called like capping. If you want to go back to that slide where it asks the kind of question that's so inaccurate, asking about, hey, create a new limit on the growth of property tax revenue for most local governments. And you're 100% right. Actually, should be optional to say some. But so you're really saying though that Proposition HH allows these local governments to basically opt out of this limit on growth. So I mean, it's toothless. Is Proposition HH, is that true that this is totally toothless, that any of these local jurisdictions, these local governments can just circumvent it with this little public hearing?
Yes. So looking at it as a big umbrella, you would think with all the local governments, they're going to get that growth cap that's in here. But the truth is, two of the major ones are exempted completely from it. That's
Right.
school districts, which is by far most property tax bill is going to be the biggest line item. They're exempt from the whole growth limit,
Right.
property tax limit. Home rule jurisdictions, mostly that's cities, bigger cities especially. Home rule jurisdictions, that also includes a few counties, are exempted completely from it. So you take that remaining amount of special districts, all they do have to do is hold a meeting, publish notice in a major newspaper, which, by the way, how many people read the legal classified notices in their public newspaper? Is it a lot? I don't think so. They have to publish it in there that they're going to hold a meeting, and then 10 days, and then they take public comment, which again, that might be a whole grand 3 minutes. I've gone to a lot of public meetings. Your
Right.
3 minutes is pretty much the standard. You get to testify, then they get to turn around and vote however they want.
So HH, in reality, I mean, we know what's going to happen, right? We know these special districts, these politicians, give them the opportunity, right? And they're going to do what they can to keep more money to raise these taxes. So, I mean, that's what Proposition HH is setting up, this situation where we could be taxed out the wazoo from every little local level of government there is, it seems, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're not, it was interesting during testimony that Special Districts Association, the Colorado Fire Chiefs are testifying in against this measure for a variety of reasons. But one, they feel they're not getting enough money. At the end of the day, we're both agreeing from different points of view the reasons why Proposition HH is bad. I mean, for me, if a district is getting a 20% increase, that should be sufficient. For them, they feel that should making it up. So at the end of the day, they get to waive this revenue cap, and what that will end up doing is costing the taxpayers more money, making housing more expensive. And when government's trying to, on the other hand, say we want affordable housing, why would they even hand up a measure like this? It's all going to cost us more.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that is just so dishonest, so deceitful. I mean, not surprising, of course, knowing where that this proposition, this initiative, this legislation, who it's coming from, right, at our state government and the legislature. But it's just shocking, and it's really just abhorrent how much they're willing to twist this truth, or really present this illusion of a growth limit, this limit on the growth of property tax. It's a total illusion. I mean, it can disappear in the snap of a fingers, one meeting, and that's gone. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. And like I say, going back to, you get 10 days notice, even if you want to drum up people to speak, it's not making it enough of a process. If they really wanted to make this pro-taxpayer, it shouldn't be just up to those elected officials, many of who may not have enough sense to know that they are creating financial harm. They haven't put the figures down on paper to understand that increase. I mean, I just recently did an analysis with City of Lakewood, and based upon, if we don't do a mill reduction here, the city will be benefiting 5 times, meaning instead of $1 million, it's $5 million plus, could be plus, depends on the valuation finals that come in, but a substantial amount of money more. And while the government gleefully looks at this as a big bonus, it's a Christmas present, it's a party for them. We get to do this, we get to do that. At the end of the day, when people are over at the grocery store and they're wondering why instead of filling up a grocery cart, they're now filling up a grocery basket that they carry around in their hand for the same amount of money. I mean, on top of inflation, to even throw this proposition HH up is a total insult. It's a total disconnect for what is going on with the economy. And the fact that these legislators are the same ones, the ones that are sponsoring this bill, are the same ones that sat up there and said that if you don't get rid of the Gallagher amendment, this is going to happen and this has happened. Even had the the gall, I don't even know. Okay, I'm not supposed to curse. All right. So the gall that to throw this up when what Gallagher did would have kept the property assessment rate from lowering, it would have kept going lower, excuse me, as these valuations would have gone up. Okay, because we knew the valuations were going to go up. Yeah. And instead it froze the assessment rate. So this whole trigger here of those sponsors creating part of the problem with removing Gallagher, and then to kill citizen initiatives like they've done recently to cap property taxes and throw Proposition HH up, then to claim that it's got local government property tax caps, which exclude big chunk of government, big piece of the pie, and then also creates exempting amount. And for what's remaining, they get to just hold a public meeting, 10-day notice, take some public testimony, and they get to opt out. I mean, it's just this is an insult to this. And they're trying to back voters into a corner here. And there are options. As I described, yes. I mean, going to here where we talk about a recall, that doesn't have to just happen at the local level. Yeah. I'm not going to have anything up. I'm just saying it certainly would be reasonable.
Wow. Well, yeah, situation's pretty dire with Proposition HH. I hope just the word gets out there that people, share this information, do everything possible to get this defeated in November. Get it out there. Our cost of living's the highest it's ever been in Colorado. Inflation's on the top in the country in the Denver area, and this is only going to make life a little bit harder, more difficult for most people. So, yeah. Wow. Well, on that uplifting note.
Yes, I'm good, but there is relief. So first of all, again, anybody who's got Tabor or you got the 5.5 property tax cap in place, life's looking better. Too many have given up, but solution is really here getting involved with the local politics. Before that, it's really like mid-October, early October, mid-October, when these local governments set the mill levy, because they have to file it by December 15th. So they don't actually have to decide it in October. It could be decided in November, but really it's up to citizens right now. Speak up. Please, anybody watching, these legislators, these elected officials, local ones, they're not getting hammered yet on lower the property tax mill levy. Just taking 5 minutes to email them, call 1 or 2 or 3, call the mayor, say, will you please pass this message on? It will make a difference.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. Appreciate your passion and all the work you're putting into keeping Colorado free and making it a better place for everyone. So thank you so much, and look forward to hearing what you have next time.
I'm thankful to be on here with you and talk about this.
Awesome. Well, we'll take care.
You too. Thanks.